Well, good afternoon and welcome back to the Little French Homestead. My name is Sherry. If you are new to my channel today, welcome. So I'm sure that we have seen some of our favorite food items go up in price, but have you really seen some of these go up? Now, I've been watching them for quite a while now, and I am just baffled at what I am seeing. And then I'm watching all of the younger generation shop and wonder if they know or have been taught by the older generation's tips and tricks about how to preserve and process food if you are not able to use it up right away. Instead of just throwing it out, like we all have done numerous times, including myself, some of these items can freeze and turn into something else at a later date. So today's video, we are going to talk about being frugal and the ways that the younger generation have forgotten or not been taught. Now, let me give you a quick definition of frugal, okay? So being frugal is being intentional with money and resources, spending carefully to avoid waste, and prioritizing value over price. Now, let me give you the definition of cheap. Something that costs very little money, is below price, the expected value. It suggests poor quality or shoddy workmanship. That is a big difference between the two of them. Now, let me tell you a little bit about what I found out recently about my family history that I did not know till I started asking questions. Now, I did a previous video about me and my little bit of history, but let me stick to the older generation and what I learned. Now, my mom's mom, my mère, that is French for grandmother, she passed away when I was 9. So I didn't get to spend a lot of quality time in the kitchen with her as a teenager or obviously an adult. But I do remember that she had a sewing machine. It was a Black Singer. My mom was telling me that when she sewed, she did a lot of fixing everything herself. She did make some new clothes. She let them in or let them out. All of the used ones. There was no going to the store to go buying brand new if you could fix, take in or out the other ones. So my mom actually told me a little story that she used to babysit some kids. There was about 5 over one summer. She did a lot of cooking and cleaning in the house and babysitting the kids because she wanted a brand new dress for a special dance. After she bought the dress, she had brought it home, and she said that my grandmother inspected it to make sure that all the dress was seamed correctly and zipped correctly. When she went to the grocery store to buy food, now she wasn't able to have a garden where she was lived, but that did not stop her to save money in other ways. When she would buy a whole chicken, she would get baked potatoes and some green beans, and that would be your Sunday dinner. Maybe Tuesday was chicken pot pie, using some of the leftover chicken and potatoes, maybe if you had some extra green beans, and maybe a few carrots or some onions, making a delicious gravy and some homemade pie crust. Then on Thursday was probably some chicken soup, using that carcass to make a delicious broth and maybe any leftover veggie scraps. Since we were raised Catholic, there was no meat served on Fridays, so my mom had pancakes. Saturday, as we have a very large family, especially in the summer, we lived in a cul-de-sac with all of my aunts, uncles, and cousins. They had hot dogs with homemade beans, corn on the cob, and homemade pies. There was about 30 to 40 people, and they all brought a little bit of everything what they could grow or what they bought and made into something delicious. Maybe on Mondays was maybe a took-care pie. That is ground sausage and potato minced into a savory meat pie with a mixture of spices that included cinnamon, cloves, and nutmeg. Wednesday was spaghetti night. Now, that wasn't every week, but that's to give you an idea of what they ate and what they used, what they had. Now, my dad's mom, also Memir, he was telling me that his grandmother had a small little farm. They had some meat-raising chickens and some rabbits with a nice garden. She used every scrap of those vegetables from eating fresh, then into stock. He remembers that spaghetti sauce on the stove cooking all day long on Sundays. That sauce was made with their homegrown tomatoes, and she made a big batch. So for later in the week, they actually could make maybe lasagnas or some meatball subs. And she'd made homemade bread daily. Now let's go over some of the other ways that you can reuse or repurpose some of those ingredients that might be going in bad in your refrigerator right now. Let's see. So if you have any herbs going bad, you could actually cut them into cut them all up, put them into ice cube trays, pour a little bit of avocado oil or regular oil over them, freeze them. Once they're frozen, you can take them out of the trays, place them in a plastic bag, use them for soups, stews, and sauces. Even maybe add them to rice for some extra flavor. If you had any bread that was about to go bad or getting hard, make them into croutons or some breadcrumbs, and then you can freeze them. Any fresh fruits, turn into applesauce. Bananas, they would take the peels off, put them in a bag, and then you would make banana muffins or banana bread with them later on. If you had any citruses at that time or in your refrigerator, you can go ahead and zest them. Sometimes the store does like a 4 for $1. You may not all need them for a meal, but zesting up them, placing them in a plastic bag and freezing it, that way you always have fresh zest. And then some lemons if you don't happen to use all for that chicken picanha that you are so waiting to make at the end of the week. Any of your meats. So after you cooked all of your meats with the bones, you want to freeze those bones. Whether it's pork from a pork chop, ham, or a nice T-bone steak, you can separate them into different plastic bags. And then when you have enough, you can make some homemade delicious broth and stock with those. And the best part, it is so much healthier and better for you than those store-boughts. And you can also control the seasonings and the salt amounts. But at last and not least, those delicious vegetables. Now, whether or not you're able to grow them at your house or you buy them, always still wash them very thoroughly. You can use carrot tops for pesto. That is delicious. I have done that. Bought too many onions. Before they start going bad, you can dice or slice and then you can freeze them. If we're not a big fan of like the fresh peppers, but we do love them in dishes, so I usually get a buy one, get one free mini bell peppers, and I freeze them right away. Cut them and dice them, and that way you have them. Mix them match with the onions, and that way you have both of them together, saving bags in the future. Any leftover veggie scraps, after you have thoroughly washed them, freeze them. Save them to add into your broths. Not only does that make your soup or your broth extra delicious, nothing is going to waste. If you do happen to have chickens, you can also give those scraps to the chickens once you have used all of the nutrients out, and then the circle is complete. Back then, they used every single piece of food. There was hardly any waste. If you got to have a small little fark back then, you squeezed everything all out, and then your animals got the remaining scraps. And if they could not finish anything in a reasonable time, They would then pressure can it and save it for that winter season when food could be even more scarce, especially back in the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl when that was going on. They ate the food that was in season. Buying corn on the cob in the winter was unheard of. You would eat it at the peak time of freshness. If you were able to grow it, then you would have been able to can it. The older generation knew what was going on and what they were doing. If you were lucky enough to have been taught in the old ways, you are very lucky, and that needs to be passed on before it is forgotten. Unfortunately for me, I was not taught this. My mom's mom passed away when I was 9, and then we moved about 2 hours away from my other grandmother, so neither of them were able to show me anything growing up. My parents are amazing, but they bought a convenience store when I was 9. That's why we moved. And when they were running the store, they were gone about 60, 70 hours a week, even though I was in school until about 15 years ago. When I got pregnant with my twins is when I actually started cooking. But that's when I really started to enjoy cooking. Don't get me wrong, I knew how to cook, but at that time frame, for me, in my mind, was a chore. I did not enjoy it at that time frame, okay? It wasn't until I started making the girls their own baby food. And as I was learning with the help of my mom, she did show me all of the ins and outs of cooking because she was not also taught by her mom, and she had to learn at a young age. My mom and dad got married very young. She was 19 and he was 23, and I was born shortly after that. So she really had to do everything and learn everything on her own, and they both did an amazing job at raising me. So remember what I said in a previous video, that after I had my oldest daughter, I had to move back into the Florida Keys to live with my mom and dad. My mom did a lot of cooking still back then. So in many ways, she was a savior for me when I had to learn. She was right there by my side. Thanks, Mom. Thank you so much for allowing me to come into your home today. If you like this video, please like, share with family and friends. Comment below on what you were taught or learned on your own. I would absolutely love to hear what you did to help preserve, can, and any of the knowledge. Please go ahead and subscribe. Click that notification bell to get all of my updated videos. I do try to post at least 3 a week, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. And as always, keep on cooking. Bye.